My name is Tonya Reeves, and this is my testimony of how God has set me free from drugs and alcohol and how He is now using me in the battle against drug addiction. My story is different from most. My childhood was not perfect, but I was very loved. I had wonderful parents and an older sister who I adored. There were a couple of things that happened during that time that were traumatic to me as a child, but nothing that should have led to the choices I made later in life. I married at a young age and had 2 beautiful daughters. My marriage ended after a couple of years, and I was soon on to another relationship. During that relationship, I had my 3rd child, my sweet boy. Over the course of the next several years, I would marry again, and my mom would become fatally ill with a rare brain disease. This was a devastating and extremely difficult time in my life. I was raising my children, operating a business, and helping take care of my mother. 10 years after her diagnosis, she passed away. Life kept going, but it was different now, and soon depression took over my life. I had always been a social drinker, but I was now drinking to help with the pain I felt inside. And then, a couple of years later, I discovered pain pills worked even better. It started with one of my husband's pain pills and shortly turned into full-blown addiction. I divorced my husband, moved in with a much younger man, became an IV drug user, received felony drug charges, and lost custody of my son within a 3-year period. I tried to get clean from pills after losing custody of my son, but it seemed impossible without something to replace the ability to numb myself from reality. That's when my alcohol addiction started. The only hope I felt during that time was becoming a grandmother to my first 2 beautiful grandchildren, but even that wasn't enough to motivate me to get better. The relationship I was in soon ended because of my drinking, and I found myself alone for the first time in my life. I was drinking day and night, and guilt and depression were consuming me to the point that I hoped I could drink enough to go to sleep and never wake up. I went to several different short-term rehabs during this time, and finally my family sent me to a 10-month program in Arkansas. 1 month before completing the program, I was dismissed for taking pain pills. I lied to my family about the reason, so when I came home, they were full of hope that I would finally get my life on track. I now had 3 grandchildren and one more reason to stay sober, but almost immediately I started drinking again, and about 6 months later, I made the choice to try meth for the first time. This drug stole every ounce of dignity I had left, and I became someone I did not recognize and would do whatever it took to get my next shot. I stole money from my family, I was homeless, and for a couple of years, I was running from the law because of warrants. During this time, my only niece was killed in a car accident, and my family was devastated. I remember my daughter telling me that if losing her wasn't enough to make me want to get clean, then nothing would, and she was right. I honestly did not care. I didn't care that I was missing precious time with my children and grandchildren. I didn't care that my sister had lost her child. I didn't care that I was homeless. The only thing I cared about was staying high. Eventually, my warrants caught up with me, and God showed up in the form of blue lights. I was arrested, and while I was in jail, a friend of mine who was working for McNairy County Recovery Court came to see me and offered me a choice of rehab once again. At first, I wasn't interested, but I knew it was my only hope of getting out of jail. So I agreed to go to Women of Hope for 1 year. I walked into Women of Hope on July 13th, 2020, completely broken and right where God needed me to be. As soon as I walked through the doors, something immediately felt different. I was raised in church and for the most part raised my children in church, but I had never experienced a real relationship with the Lord and had never felt His presence like I did that day. I soon started meeting women who had graduated the program, and I seen what God had done in their lives, and for the first time in years, I had real hope. Hope that God would do the same thing for me. When we lay broken at the feet of Jesus, He sees a vessel, a vessel He can fill and use for His glory. During my stay, I learned to be still and allow God to fill me with His love. I prayed many prayers for the forgiveness of my family, and slowly I saw the evidence that not only was God healing me through this program, but He was also healing my family. As part of the program, I also started working at Hope Cafe. This became a place where I started sharing what God was doing in my life with other people. The guilt and shame from my past was now being used as the testimony of His goodness. Today, I am almost 6 years clean from drugs and alcohol. I'm now manager of that same cafe. I have the privilege of watching other men and women share their stories with customers every day. I'm also working towards becoming a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. God has completely restored my family, and next week I will become a grandmother to my 8th grandchild. My relationship with the Lord has grown so much over the last 6 years, and I'm honestly living the life I once prayed for. I will forever be grateful to God for giving Pastor Marcy the vision of Hope Recovery Center. I am living proof of what God can do through this program. One of my favorite scriptures is 1 Peter 5:10. In His kindness, God called you to share in His eternal glory by means of Christ Jesus. So after you have suffered a little while, He will restore, support, and strengthen you, and will place you on a firm foundation. I am now discovering who I am as a child of God, not who pain made me, not who trauma shaped me to be, not who shame tried to turn me into. I am loved, I am healing, and I am set free. Christ is my firm foundation. I no longer need drugs or alcohol. I have found everything I need in Jesus Christ.